Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with another video. It's January 17th, 2026. It is Saturday. Today's Saturday. Okay, for a second I was about to say it was going to be Friday, but no, that was yesterday. Apologies for not uploading yesterday. I have to get better routine. Interestingly, we were talking about that in the last couple 2 or 3 episodes, but it's obviously something very fundamental and important, and we'll keep talking about that most definitely, as well as other things that I've talked about in the previous videos. But I just have to build that routine, and I really have to wake up early because I start realizing that time is very precious, and the moment I say, you know what, let me sleep an extra hour, next thing you know, work, I literally have to get ready in my car and head to work. I really don't have time. So that's why it's very keen that I wake up early in the morning to record and then edit. Because, man, it takes a while to post these videos, or at least to render them. And don't worry, pretty soon I will be getting a haircut, so. But, I guess today, because obviously there's a wide range of series of topics, I wanted to talk about love, relationships. It's been something that's kind of been on my mind the last couple of days, I'd say. And obviously, I mean, for a while. You look at today's society, and I mean, if you're in Gen Z, or the generations that come after us, Gen Y, Gen Alpha, Gen Omega, don't know what are the specified terms, but I'm pretty sure I nailed a couple of them. You start realizing as kids that we grew up in the early 2000s, where really technology started really putting an influence into our lives, and we grew up with a lot of things of technological advances, and they played a role in influence, our life, how we grew up, how we interacted with each other, and so many more aspects and factors. But I would say when it comes to dating, it's a challenge, bro. And I mean, I'm talking to the guys. Usually, I mean, my videos are pretty well-oriented across from men and women, boys and girls, but I mean, I guess this can apply both ways, men, women, boys and girls, but dating in today's society is really difficult. It's challenging. It's not easy. I mean, this isn't like the 50s, 60s, or 70s where people, you actually had to go out, socialize, meet up at places, go to the movies, go to the beach, go to the park, go to hang out at a friend's party, do something interesting, cultivate that friendly atmospheric environment and associate yourself with other people that you know. Ever since technology came around and the internet and social media, it's completely changed the whole concept of human interaction. People feel more comfortable saying hey, I don't necessarily have to be in person, physically right in front of you, talking face to face, when I can just talk over the phone, or I can talk over text messages. I can utilize technology to still communicate with you without being present with you. And it's a little interesting on the fact that you sort of get blown away, because the whole concept of human, interaction and human likeness in person, it's faded, and it's continuing to fade. People don't really have majority of people just don't have an interest anymore of like going out and showing up in person, interacting. Technology has just influenced our lives so much to a point where we just don't feel the need. And keep in mind, this is Gen Z, where technology was slowly getting introduced to us, so we weren't on the full impact, because at least my generation, the earlier side, when we grew up in the early 2000s, technology was slowly getting incorporated. It wasn't a massive direct. It's not like when you were born, you have a lot of kids these days that are already having iPads, phones at such a young age, and their exposure to technology is like right then and there. But it's playing a massive role. And I'm not saying that technology is not bad and that it's not a good thing, because it can be. It's a very, interesting and developmental tool that, when used properly and accordingly, can pay massive dividends to whatever you want to do, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your personal life, your social life. I mean, if you use things correctly, they can propel and accentuate good values and great results in whatever you want. Now, in the aspect of dating, when it comes to like dating apps and social media, like in the internet itself, I mean, it's great. I love social media, don't get me wrong, and I love the internet, but a lot of people in today's society, man, we tend to get very carried away with what we see online. A lot of people too, they tend to not use their brain so strongly. They allowed themselves to get dumbed down or controlled, in a sense where, I'll follow the line or follow what I'm told. But also, when it comes to, information and knowing about certain things, because, in society, the government would prefer you follow a certain script, a process. The government would prefer to keep you divided rather than united. United and informed, they wouldn't want you that. They would want you divided and confused. Because it's quite simple. If you're united and you have such an overwhelming, powerful force, then you pose a threat. Division helps, the vast elites, those who control massive influences. It can sway the masses. I mean, you've looked at history and propaganda, you see how much of a big influence that plays. But it's interesting, because when it comes to dating and love, you look at social media and you look at online, and on the internet, and you see a lot of these people living these lives that are luxurious and exciting and thrilling, and they seem to be having a good time. But a lot of these people, a huge percentage of them, they're misleading you, and they're probably lying. Listen, guys, we are reached now a point, especially with artificial intelligence, it's not that hard to fake a lifestyle. Literally. Even earlier on in the day, I mean, you have people literally, dude, that can travel around the world, stay in a cheap hotel, take a photo in front of a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, go out to these exotic places, these restaurants, and snap photos or videos, or be doing these lucrative events and luxurious places, but in reality, I mean, they don't have that large lump sum of money that you presume that they have. And to be honest too, a lot of them have a very deep empty hole inside of them that they're just trying to fill, because they don't have happiness. They're depressed, profoundly, but they're looking for validation from other people, which is what becomes a very toxic habit in a way, because it's just self-inflicting harm at that point. You have to be comfortable with yourself. You have to like yourself. You can't be a person that bends for everyone's needs. You have to understand this, and this applies in relationships, in love, in your social life, career. You have to work on being the better image of yourself. You know, abide and oblige by those that give you constructive criticism and something helpful, not something derogative or um, incompetent in a way that, it's just it just meant to tear you down and just make you, feel bad. Because there's genuinely people that are out there looking for your well being, and you sometimes have to be open for advice. Because I know everybody has a pride and everybody has an ego, but sometimes if we're not careful, your pride and ego get the best of you. And trust me, when you least expect it, you will get a very big humbling experience. So it's always best to be open to learning, because you're not perfect. You're always going to want to learn more. But let me not get sidetracked. This video was supposed to be stemly around love and relationships, but I've incorporated some other interesting side topics. But back to the love and the relationship aspect of life. In today's day and age, dude, I guess when I'm speaking to guys, with women, I get told I'm a very attractive young man. There's a lot of women that approach me, at my job, and I get subtle comments here and there, or compliments, I'd say. But sometimes I just dismiss them as, just oh, you're just being friendly. I appreciate the compliment. Good. It's nothing like that. Nothing too big. But it's, in some cases, it could be an overwhelming amount, or something where I just dumb myself down a little bit to, you overlook. But I don't know, dudes. It gets to a certain point where, because when you look at society as a whole today, right, with the internet, with social media, a lot of women have crazy high expectations, bro. You have women that, I need a guy that is 6 feet plus. He has to make 6 figures. He has to work in business or finance or any other lucrative large career. And he has to be a top tier model. He's got to be shredded with a six pack, weighs between 180 to 250 pounds, something, They give a list of specified requirements and designations, but this is the interesting thing that a lot of women don't tend to grasp, is that usually men of the top 10 or 1%, bro, they have options. They have a lot of options. They have their garden, and in that garden there's plenty of flowers. There's a lot of them, different colors, different sizes, different aromas. There's a plenty of them to choose from. And just because you might think, you'll have easy access, that's not always the case too. Because, let's face it. And, if you are a lady, thank you for tuning in and listening to this. But, when it comes to breakups, the reality of the situation is breakups hurt guys more than they hurt women. Because with women, it's not that hard for them to move on, dude. Women, they can have other options and choices. Whereas a guy, you might not have so many options and choices. And the struggle for you to move on, the emotional connection is more deeply engraved into a guy or a boy than it is to a female or woman. Now, that might be a different scenario depending on how the relationship is between couples and how things transpired. Because obviously, if it wasn't severed because of cheating or any other thing at that grave extremity, but instead you just decided to go separate ways because of career or life or any other thing that just ultimately got in the way. But, for the most part, breakups do hurt men more than women. And then, there's the topic of feminism, where women demand equality. And, we demand that we want to be, this viewed as the same as men, equal to men. But then also, you want equal pay. And on top of that, they influence the idea that, we're strong, we're independent, we don't need a man in our life to take care of us. Which, you're entitled to that opinion, by all means. The funny thing is, and the shocking thing is, a lot of these women, when feminism really started to pull about, I think this was after, I'd say, COVID. Obviously, when woke culture started to really influence and cancel culture, and it was starting to take a high road trajectory. People started to get really oversensitive about certain topics. You couldn't talk about them bluntly or, express your thoughts, because people would deem you as crazy, disrespectful, incompetent, a list of things. But it's just interesting because a lot of these women are it's like life is slapping them in the face and giving them a really harsh wake-up call, because a lot of these girls are gorgeous and beautiful. And the sad thing is, dude, if you're a young girl, you can, let's say when you turn 18, from let's say 18 to 25, or maybe 26, that time frame window, it's I'm in my party girl phase. I want to live life. I want to be out there in the worldly scene. I want to, give myself exposure, meet new people, make friends. I want to experience a variety of different relationships. I want to hang out with guys. I want to, do all this. They prefer the bad boy over the nice guy. And evidently, the bad boy will give them thrill, excitement, and risk in a way, versus the nice guy. You'll get a sense of security, care, and genuine love. Because it's love and lust are two completely different things, and people tend to get that fused together. Just because you have sex with somebody doesn't mean you love them. Get that through your head. It's very, very important. Just because you have sex with somebody does not mean you love them. Now, with that being said, in the dating scene, in today's society, and how feminism has played an influence of overall how women are and how things react. But women, in that age period of 18 to 26, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to enjoy myself, I'm going to explore the world, I'm going to make friends, I'm going to go ahead and make big connections, I'm going to do a whole bunch of things. By the time I'm done, at the end of my my prime, because a lot of women tend to get offended by this, and bro, it's biological in science, bro. You have a certain point, you're born with a certain set amount of eggs, but as you progress through life and as you get older in age, your egg count starts to decrease. And predominantly too, by the age of 30, you probably lose a little over 50% of all your eggs. And when you go past 30, unfortunately, you don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it's online, dude. There's literally medical science to back this up. It's a slow and steady decline. For some women, it could be faster than others, depending on how your lifestyle is and what you decide to do. If you're smoking, doing drugs, and all that stuff, it can accelerate, and you can prolong it or worsen it. You can delay it or worsen it, depending on your situation and circumstance of your life. But what's interesting is by the time they're done with that youthful period of their prime, and women start to realize, you know what, I think I'm done with the crazy life and all of the the excitement of the thrills, because let's face it, majority of the time, maybe if not all the time, but mostly, the bad boy just is there for just a thrill, for just an enjoyment, He's there to just have fun. He's not going to be there truly when, if you're in need, maybe if you get sick, or if you're genuinely, if you need somebody to entrust in, Because what if he's seeing other girls behind your back? Or what if you're texting him and he's not responding to you? Or if you're calling him and he's not answering you? Next thing you know, it's one heartbreak after the other. And eventually you get emotionally scarred. And then you start saying, oh, the world is cruel, all men are trash, and then they're terrible. But the reality of the situation is, all men are not like that. There are a lot of good men, good-hearted, that were raised by good parents. They were raised to be respectful, correct, and appropriate, and not, abide by the crazy and the radical or degenerate views or mindsets or concepts of the world and the values that they propel. But it's just really surprising, because by then, at that point, past the age of 25 or 26, then they start looking for guys, for the nice guy. And then they're like, why can't I find, where did he go? He really liked me. Why is he, where did he go? I texted him, he's not interested. Or wow, he's in a relationship with this girl. And they start to realize, damn, I wasted a lot of my youth trying to chase their own excitement, but I didn't realize that not only did I squander my value and my worth, I degraded myself in order to chase the feeling of excitement, chase pleasure, short term, and chase being around other people that truly didn't value me, respect me, or care about me. And they were really only there selfishly for their own intentions and desires to fulfill. And now this isn't the case for all women, but most women. There are, gentlemen, there is a lot of really beautiful and lovely girls out there that do have, good morals and respect themselves. They save themselves towards marriage. There's a lot of these girls, dude. You ask them about body count and it's like an immediate offense. They go so defensive. The same thing though can apply to guys in a sense, but it's mostly looked upon as women. And now I know the argument can be made, but guys, when you're young and you want to go party and do all this with women, and there is a separate tense and mindset that men should have, because guys, you just can't be sticking your dick in pretty much anything, in any girl. You gotta be smart. Come on, don't get a woman pregnant that you are not going to be fully invested in, that you're not going to build a relationship with, or that you don't see yourself, gauging a life with long term. Because the sad reality is, you're bringing a kid into this world who's going to suffer. There's kids that end up in foster care. Next thing you know, you have a mother who's raising a child by herself, because in majority of those cases, the father is not present in the life of the child. There are some instances though that it is reversed where the father is left to raise the child as the mother wants absolutely nothing and she decides to go and squander into another relationship. But in both ways of the dating spectrum, men and women, you have your specific set of values, you have your specific set of allocated designations, and what you should do to make sure that you are propelled adequately and appropriately, to do things correctly. The thing is, though, it's just that everybody's just so blinded by the world and like the worldly values, and like immorality is like so high. I mean, the influence of God, it's like it's fading out of people's lives, and the devil thrills at the enjoyment of seeing all of this, confusion, suffering, and all this stuff. You have to really discipline yourself. You have to be smart about things. A lot of these girls, and guys too, you can apply this, but I mean, guys are also applicable to this, but I guess the world sort of pans this view towards women, but in both genders. If you have a high body count, you sleeping around with a lot of people doesn't really increase your value as a person, I would say. Now, the thing is, it doesn't affect men and women the same. It's way worse for women than it is for men. The society, the worldly views work. They view as like a guy, like, oh, you're a player, you're a big shot, you know your way around with women. The ladies love you. Whereas if you're a woman and you sleep with a bunch of guys, then you're viewed as a SLUT. You're viewed as a sex object, a toy, and you're not a good person at all, or you're not trustworthy. It's very interesting, the dynamic that exists in society when it comes to these things. Overall, I mean, everybody has their own definition of what a high body count is. But I think collectively, probably 95 to 99% of people could say that body count over 10 is pretty high. In that sense, and it's sad, dude, because a lot of these girls that are like, they're so beautiful and gorgeous, but they've gone down the road of like either doing OnlyFans or they're doing all these things, or just living this limelight, because the reality is a lot of them are chasing thrills and excitement. They don't want to fit into the giant machine known as the labor force or the job market, and they don't want to be another little cog that's added into the machine when another one falls off to replace and keep the machine winding and making the giant corporations money, or the elites, giving more and more power, because it's the desire to chase quick money at the expense of your integrity, of your image, of your character. Because the thing is, all those things, bro, they will follow you later on in life, and you will be questioned by them. Like, if you're a guy, like, do not settle for less, bro. Do not. Like, there's a lot of women, too, that, they're single mothers. I would not say that all single mothers are bad, but I think 95 to 99% of boys and men can probably agree with me, saying that they do not want to take care of another man's kid, quite simply. Now, there might be very, very specific list of excluded instances. For example, if you were a mom and you're widowed, your husband died in a car accident, or he died because of like a medical disease, or you were cheated on, or things of that nature related. There's a whole list I can go down, but for time's sake, we'll keep it short. Versus if you were a woman, you have 3 baby daddies, you were just constantly out going to like clubs, restaurants, basically seeking for attention because you didn't focus on trying to cultivate the love and the interest in the relationship. And the same thing, I guess, could apply to a guy in different standards and contexts. There are some women out there that are, genuine and they were mistreated, but the thing is, for a majority of women, a lot of them, you sort of put yourself in the situation you're in. And now you're looking for a scapegoat, whether it's somebody to pay for your lifestyle, pay for your kids, and do a whole bunch of other things for you. And as a guy, I mean, like I said, 95 to 99% of guys, they don't want to take on the responsibility of taking us over somebody else's kids. That's why when it comes to dating, this is the harsh reality. You're not at the top of the food chain. And vice versa, guys, I mean, if you're a guy, you slept around, you have a wife or children, and, next thing you know, they discover that you had a secret affair, and now another woman's pregnant. That doesn't really help your image, and character. It doesn't really propel you up the chain, it just really shuffles you down. Whatever people tell you, though, about being a virgin, and you say, like, oh, you should let loose, like, explore, like, come on, stop being a little bitch, or stop being, so, like, reserved, or all this other, nonsense they say. Appreciate that, dude. The right girl is going to come your way. And ladies, the right guy will come your way. If you are holding yourself and you're reserving yourself, be mindful, because they do exist. You just have to be patient, work on yourself, and really adhere to standards. Set yourself a list of standards. So set yourself to high standards. Now, I want to clarify this, especially for women. When it comes to high standards, what I mean is standards on your integrity, your character, your image, how you speak, interact with others, how you carry yourself, that type of things. When it comes to finances, living luxury lives, I want the guy that's 7 feet tall, he makes massive lumps of money, because a lot of these women live with the delusion that these guys are available in surplus, in excess. And they realize that's like less than 0.001% of the population. And then no wonder they struggle when they realize it's a challenge to get that guy's attention, because you got competition. There's a lot of genuine, caring, and loving guys out there that want a true relationship. They want to be loved, cared, respected. They don't want to be disrespected, misjudged, or undervalued, because whether you like to admit it or not, this probably will upset feminists, but like, the world was built off the backs of men. I mean, a lot of stuff happened, look throughout history. Men have played a big, massive role. The other day, because I love history a lot, right? So, and I'll probably talk about history as well on this channel too. But, and don't worry guys, I will be, the new camera's coming soon, so the videos won't look like it's a 9/16 angle, like it is on Instagram or TikTok. We'll actually see the full like panel view, how it fits on the screen on YouTube. As I know it'll suit the video quality better, and it'll make it easier for you guys to view. But I was thinking of like when in the early 1900s, like, Susan B. Anthony fought for women's rights. Like, it just makes you wonder, like, what would be the perception or mindset to be like, hey, look, this is what today's society is about. Like, with what most women, perceive things as, like that kind of stuff. So it's just interesting, you know. It reminds me of you know, I love World War II a lot, so I do a lot of research, and I'm constantly learning. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've learned a lot of stuff from being open to learn certain things. I just was checking the time about history, and I must say, what is really interesting about this is because I read comments online, but if you remember June 6th, 1944, obviously D-Day, where we had American, British, Canadian, and Australian troops, that stormed the beaches of Normandy, and they were invading German occupied or Nazi controlled France. And I was just scrolling through Instagram or I think YouTube, and one day I read this comment from a guy, I don't remember his name, but he's like, damn, like if Britain, if these veterans were still alive and they realized like the tumultuous like construct of like their country and what's going through, they probably would have thought twice of, invading those beaches. And, I always viewed that was probably like the greatest generation to live. I mean, these guys, dude, were like our age, bro. Like they were like fresh out of high school, like 20, 21. I think even on the first wave of boats that stormed the beaches and rushed in, I read an article somewhere. It was on a national history archive. Apparently, the youngest soldier was like 19 years of age. 19. Straight out of high school, drafted right into the army. And a lot of these guys, dude, were just average, ordinary people, just living their lives. And next thing you know, they were involved in a global world conflict. And they gave their lives. I just want you guys to leave on this thought. This video is getting really long. Holy crap. Just be mindful of, when you go about your day, obviously we all have different struggles and things and situations that we endure, but always remember, bro, there are people in history and there are people around the world that are having it probably 10 times to 100 times worse than you will probably ever be in. So just keep that mindset, that perception alive, because it's very important for you to realize that the struggles that you're going through, they're only temporary. They're only going to last a short period of time. And you should take this time to learn as much as you can and really develop yourself as a person, elevate your character and status. But when it comes to the world, like I said, I read a lot into history, and, one day I was watching how the German advance into the Soviet Union in 1942 when the Battle of Stalingrad unfolded. That right there, when I listened to that whole memoir from a German soldier, dude, I'll tell you one thing, that is... People like to make a depiction of hell on earth. I will tell you that battle, let that sink in, that battle, literally, you had a total death of over 1 million combat troops. An insane amount, like over 800,000 German troops and over 1 million Soviet troops. It was like 1 to 2 million deaths. And that battle alone literally equated to the same amount of deaths on every other front in the war. That is mind-boggling, dude. The brutality of war. I just like to remember, certain things, and it just makes me feel a little bit more grateful for my life. Obviously, I might not want to be in the position that I'm in right now because I'm still working towards my goals and achievements, but it just makes me feel a little bit more grateful because, I'm not starving, I'm not homeless, I have warm food, I have a bed, I've got running water, I've got electricity, I've got a car, bro. A lot of these things, bro, there's people around the world that don't have any of this. And unfortunately, a lot of them are losing their lives. So, I guess on that note, not to run this video so long. By the way, I want to let you guys know, I am planning on starting a podcast pretty soon. So we'll have like very long episodes, maybe like an hour and 30 to 2 hours. I am going to start looking for a co-host though, and once that's all situated, but I will keep you informed though as far as when the podcast should be launching. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I hope you guys all have a great day. Stay safe and healthy, and keep going. You got this. And don't worry, the right person will come into your life. It takes time. Sometimes it comes sooner or later, but it will happen. You just have to be optimistic. Don't worry. The whole world isn't just there are genuine people in this world. There aren't just POSs. Or, low quality or low energy people. You will find a good person. Have a good one, guys. Till the next time. Peace.